Hours later, Wine paced the room like a caged animal. Her phone remained painfully silent. Every minute that passed felt like a taunt. She hated feeling so helpless, trapped in a mansion filled with strangers, waiting for news that might never come. The door creaked open, and she spun around to see Jungkook strolling in, calmly, like he hadn't just spent the last few hours tracking down criminals. Why? What happened? Did you find him? Jungkook. Straight to business. Not even a hello, you're glad you're not dead. I'm hurt. She glared at him, not in the mood for his games. Jungkook. Her heart pounded as she called him. Jungkook. Alright. I found him. Her chest tightened. Why? Is he Jungkook? Alive? Yes, but barely. They weren't bluffing. Those guys were ready to kill him if he didn't cough up what they wanted. Her knees almost gave out in relief, but his expression was still far too calm. Fine. Where is he? Can I see him? Jungkook. He's safe. My men are bringing him here. They were just behind me. Would be here any minute. He's not exactly in good shape, but he's okay. She let out a shaky breath, her eyes stinging with tears as she hugged her own arm. At this time, she wanted to hug her brother, or anyone close to her. The breath that she had been holding, her racing heart, and her increased blood pressure. When all came down a halt, she felt dizzy. She was going to fall down, but Jungkook immediately caught her, stretching his arm to catch her, and pulled her in his arms. She gasped, but then looked at him. He tightly wrapped his arms around her and looked down at her. Jungkook, calm down. Are you okay? A tear finally fell down from her eye as she was asked this question. Fine. Thank you, she said and put her head on his chest, wrapping her arms around his waist. His eyes and expression softened. He stayed frozen for a second, but then smiled and hugged her back. Jungkook. He was going to say something, but then they heard his men coming inside from the door behind them. Wang immediately broke the hug and looked behind. It was in fact her brother. Two of Jungkook's men were supporting him. His face was bruised, his steps unsteady, but he was alive. Fine. Oh my god. Her voice broke as she rushed to him, her arms wrapping around him tightly. Fine. You're okay. You're here. Fine. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. Her brother tried saying, but his voice was shaking. Fine. Shut up. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Her tears spilled as she held him. Jungkook's men carefully took her brother onto a nearby couch, stepping back to give them space. Jungkook remained by the door. Jungkook. He needs medical attention. Let me handle it. Fine time. Thank you. I mean it. I don't even know what to say. Jungkook. You already said enough. Let my men do their job. He will be fine. For the next hour, Fine refused to leave her brother's side as Jungkook's private doctor patched him up. The mansion had suddenly become a place of safety instead of a prison. When her brother finally drifted into a restless sleep, Wine stumbled out of the room to find Jungkook. She found him in his office, leaning against his desk. Jungkook, stop looking at me like that before I forget you're supposed to be resting. His voice softened, but the possessiveness was still there, clear as day. Wine. What what do you mean? Jungkook. Aren't you here to thank me again? And hug me and Wine. And You looked at her and smirked, and then cried your eyes out while thanking me. Wine's cheeks turned red as she remembered what she did out of love. Wine. That that was Jungkook. What? Wine. It was a mistake. It all happened so fast. I didn't know what happened. Jungkook tilted his head, studying her. His smirk didn't fade. Jungkook. A mistake? She swallowed. He took a slow step forward, and she took one back, her spine pressing against the edge of his desk. Jungkook. So if I were to touch you right now, he reached out, brushing a knuckle against her cheek. You wouldn't react? Her breath hitched, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. Fine, I would just ignore it. Jungkook hummed, amused. Then, without warning, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her closer, his voice dropping to a low whisper. Jungkook, liar. Her pulse jumped, betraying her, and he felt it under his fingers. Jungkook, you know, you walk around here like you are not afraid of me. Fine, I am not afraid of you, she said without looking into his eyes. Jungkook, you lie too much. His thumb brushed against her wrist, the slow, possessive motion sending shivers down her spine. The dim light only made his gaze look hungrier, more dangerous. Jungkook, you're terrified, Vine, not because of me, but because of what this is turning into. Vine, what are you talking about? She tried to pull her hand away, but he tightened his grip, his smirk deepening. Jungkook, you came to me desperate. You sold yourself, and now you can't handle the price. His words made her chest tighten. His touch made her skin tingle in ways she didn't want to admit. Fine. I didn't sell myself. I made a deal. But she still tried to regain her confidence, because she definitely was scared of what her heart was feeling at the moment. Jungkook. Yeah, a deal that put you right where I wanted you. Fine. If you think I'm going to be some obedient little prisoner, you're wrong. Jungkook. I don't want obedience. I want you to admit the truth. Fine. What truth? He leaned in, his face inches from hers, his breath warm against her cheek. Jungkook. That you're drawn to me. That even when you should hate me, you don't. That the thought of being under my control makes your heart race, just as much it terrifies you. Her pulse was pounding, so hard she could barely think. Fine. You're delusional. She gasped loudly as his lips brushed against her jaw, trailing down to her neck with agonizing slowness. A low chuckle rumbled in his chest when he felt her shiver. Jungkook. See? You want this, no matter how much you tried to deny it. At that time, she couldn't speak anything. She was just frozen. She knew she had been lying to herself that she didn't feel anything for Jungkook. But this is too much. When did she grow that much feelings towards him? She breathed heavily while being frozen at her place. He chuckled to top it up, and then pulled her in a deep kiss with himself. His lips moved against hers with dominance. His grip was firm like he already knew she wouldn't resist. And God help her, she didn't. Her fingers clutched his shirt, pulling him closer. The intoxicating way he kissed her, it made sure she was drawn in and couldn't resist. Jungkook's hand slid up her back, pulling her flush against him as his lips claimed her with hunger. And it wasn't gentle. When they finally broke apart, Vine sucked in a sharp breath. Her lips tingled from the force of his kiss. while Jungkook only smirked, his thumb brushing against her swollen lip. Jungkook, still think I'm delusional? She didn't answer. She couldn't, because he was right. Every part of her was still craving more. Jungkook chuckled. Thought so. Say it. Fine. Say what? Jungkook's grip tightened around her wrist, pulling her flesh against him again. Jungkook, did you want this? Did you want me? Her fingers trembled as they clutched onto his shirt. Her mind screamed at her to be careful, but her heart, her body, had already made the choice. Fine, fine, I want this, she admitted. Her voice was shaky, but she looked in his eyes. Jungkook smirked. Good girl. Fine. How can you remain so calm after all this? You're insane. Her voice was shaky, her fist clenched against his chest. Jungkook. Maybe, but you're the one who came running to me. And now his lips grazed her ear, his voice a dark whisper. Now you're not leaving until I'm done with you. Before she could even process his words, his lips crashed against hers again. Harder, deeper, hungrier. This time she kissed him back with everything she had, her body melting into his. And it turned into a hot makeout session. There was no denying it anymore. She was his.